We've all made the occasional mistake on a brew day, but we tell ourselves, it's fine, it'll still make beer. But some mistakes are so egregious, they will completely ruin a beer. I've asked members of the Brü Club to share their tales of woe and what they learned from those busted batches. These are 6 mistakes that will ruin your beer. This episode is brought to you by Brülosophy.com. More on that in a bit. We'll start at number 6 with a mistake of my own and count down all the way to the total annihilation. That is mistake number 1 by Brülosophy's very own Will Lovell. A while back I decided to brew a Rauch beer, basically a smoky German lager. Now the BJCP guidelines state that smoked malt can make up between 20% and 100% of the grain bill. But that's specifically for beechwood smoked malt. I looked at the smoked malts at the homebrew store and instead decided to go with cherry wood at 95% of my grist. That's 10 pounds of malt, far more than the store had on the shelves. So they brought out a sack of the stuff from out back. And honestly, that should have been my clue that something was off. You see, maltsters publish product information sheets about their grains, which usually includes suggested usage rates. For cherrywood smoked malt, 5 to 10% of the total grist. That works well for light smoked character, 10 to 20% for pronounced smoked character with light beers, and maybe up to 30 to 60% for darker beer styles. But it goes on to say that Bryce smoked malt delivers intense smoked flavour. We recommend limiting usage to 60% of the grist. Oops. The brew day, it smelled of bonfire, as did the finished murky brown resulting beer. And as for the taste, overpowering ashtray vibes. The entire batch was a tipper. But look, we are just getting started here. Brü Club member Will Allwart stopped by to tell me about his smoky disaster.
So what I did to ruin my beer was way too many firsts on the same batch. So I had the first time I wrote a recipe by myself. The first time I had to use smoke malt. The first time I used roasted malt. The first time I used a new yeast. The first time I entered a contest. Things that I didn't have any experience with, and then when I put them all together, it made the worst beer that I've ever made. One other first, I forgot. I also used chilies. Ancho chilies, because what goes better with smoked malt and roasted malt? Ancho chilies. Yes, in a lager, pseudo lager, was a brilliant plan that was flawlessly executed for a disgusting beer.
My name is Danny Sack, and I started brewing in 2015. I started out the way most people start out, or many people start out, making 5-gallon batches on their stovetop. And once I got the hang of that, I decided to try and make a lager. And so I actually found my brew notes from the beer, put that 6 gallons into my fermenter, and I fermented that put that into my dining room, which was about 67 degrees for a week. Active fermentation went through no problem. But then I took that plastic bucket and I put it into my 55-degree basement for a few weeks because I wanted to cold crash it and lager it. And so on the back of each of my recipe sheets, I wrote tasting notes. The first line in big letters is, "This beer is not good." What I now know is that by moving that beer in that bucket from a warm room down to that nice chilly room meant that I had sucked back just a ton of oxygen into the beer. When I was drinking it, I still to this day remember it. It was like drinking a cardboard box. It was terrible. And I distinctly remember too, one of my neighbors, I had a party and had a couple neighbors over, and I was very insistent, everybody should try my beer. It's, I'm very proud of it. I was an idiot. And she took a sip and she gave me that look like Joey from Friends, where he says, you know how you act when you are eating something disgusting? You go, good.
Soup.
That's what she did, and she's never drank my beer ever since.
Trust me, It gets significantly worse from here with the top 3. But before we get to those, a quick word on today's sponsor, Brülosophy.com. Yes, our very own website. We publish articles every week on various projects, and you can find every experiment we've ever brewed, sort by experiment type or by p-value result, or search through the whole catalogue. There are also articles covering the Hop Chronicles, Short and Shoddy, and you can even find our back catalogue of podcast episodes. Sign up to be notified when new articles are published. Okay, so while the mistakes so far have still resulted in beer, albeit bad beer, that's not the case for the top 3.
My name's Mike Sharps. My grandfather taught me how to brew, so I've been brewing honestly since I was about 18 years old. I was out in Hawaii brewing out there. I had a friend over. We had several drinks of my Belgian Golden Strong, actually, that was roughly about 9.5%. Definitely did not taste like it. So as the brew day went on, it's kind of one of those things. You started losing track of time, losing track of ingredients. It's like, oh, looks about right. Just go ahead and toss that in. Finally got everything cleaned up. Got the finished wort into the carboy. Chilled down, pitched the yeast, and put my fermenter into the my little dorm fridge. And this was in a garage in Hawaii. Ended up leaving for a couple weeks, and I came back to this overwhelming smell of essentially rot and death in my garage. Kind of started looking around, seeing what was going on. Was there something dead in the garage? And it led me to my little dorm fridge, and I realized it wasn't plugged in. Opened it up to just a cloud of flies. There was maggots inside, and it was I sealed it right back up, picked it up, went to the trash can, and put it right in.
Frank Osborne. I've been brewing since 2014, coming up my 10 years. Yay. When I first started, I was still sailing on tugboats, 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. So I would brew a batch, and then I would leave for my tugboat, and then I'd come back. One time, I forgot to check my spigot, and I brew a nice Kolsch, my now wife's favorite of beer. And I come back, and I just, oh, what's that? Oh, it's sticky floor. Oh, empty fermenter. Oh, then the spigot just pops right off of the fermenter, and now I got a whole batch down on the floor in my basement. The entire batch was gone. I had like maybe an inch on the bottom of the cone of gross sour wort beer. I don't know where it went because the floor is dry.
Hi, I'm Will Lovell. I'm one of the contributors over at Brülosophy.com. I've ruined beer many ways, but one surefire way to ruin beer and ruin an afternoon, per se, is to actually take a floating dip tube and hook it up to the wrong side. So, as you can see here, there's these posts, and so we have a gas post and a liquid post, and this is actually off of my keg minter. And, they're easy enough to confuse anyways, right? But on the bottom here, there's not very much to delineate which post to put it on. I guess there's a little bit of a notch here that if you, maybe if it's late at night, maybe you've been drinking a bit too much, maybe it's just been a long day, you could totally miss. And so if you hook it up to your gas post, instead of acting like a nice little blow-off tube, it'll actually act as a siphon, and it will siphon beer all into your fermentation chamber and all over your floor. And I think the last time I did it, I didn't notice until I was walking the dogs the next morning, and it happened to come up to a garage where it had this nice brown liquid coming out from underneath my garage door out into my driveway. And man, let me tell you, that was a very lovely, fun afternoon and a very great explanation to the wife on why I won't be doing anything the rest of the day except for taking sticky, icky beer out of my garage. So what did I learn from this? I learned that I really need to pay a lot of attention to the little notches here, and that maybe my normal party of, hey, I'm down to cooling, maybe I can have a few beers now, should wait until after I get down to actually hooking up my floating dip tube to the stupid post.
Yep, I'm sure that's a mistake you will only ever make once, Will. Thank you to all members of the Brü Club for being willing to put their biggest screw-ups on the internet for our entertainment. Look, these are all accomplished home brewers who just had a bad day. And hey, if you're willing to tell me about your own brewing mishaps in the comments, I'd love to see that sort of thing, because it helps me understand that it doesn't just happen to me. And sometimes we can learn important lessons, like how the YouTube comment section was put to work to fix one of my other bad beers. And you can watch that right here.